Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. We're here to talk about Julian Sayin as a Heisman candidate. Bill Landis, why are we doing this?
Because he is one, and people need to start putting his name out there when they're talking about who's in contention. We're past September, we're into October, we're almost into November, and he's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, maybe the best quarterback in the country.
And again, like a lot of this stuff, it's like I'm intrigued by the perception of what is happening. What is happening is one thing, because like here's the thing: it's like we know what's happening. Like we watch football, we know what, but it's like then it's like, oh, this is what other people are saying about what's happening, and then it's like, okay, time to get out some stats. So let's run through this first. Let's set the table for this. And by the way, we do have a story. We're writing about this. We're not going to like reveal our ballots, but we're like on our Substack at billanddougosu.substack.com. We'll have like, because we are Heisman voters. You get a Heisman email the other day?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Did you respond to it yet? I didn't respond to it yet.
I responded, yeah. I think last year or 2 years ago, I forgot to respond to it, and then it was like the time to get Heisman ballots, and I didn't have mine. So, but they got it squared away.
Yeah. So we are still Heisman balloters. So there's a difference between who you would vote for the Heisman today and then like who you think is going to be the Heisman winner at the end of the year. And on our Substack, we're going to tell you both. We're telling you both those things. But we want to have like the conversation around it. And I understand it's a different conversation, is it not? And so I don't want to yell at people for a thing, but there's like a particular thing that I want to talk about that affects the who's actually going to win it conversation at the end of the year that I guess people aren't taking into account because that's not what they're trying to take into account. But it's kind of, should I just say what it is instead of like talking around it?
Yeah, what is the thing?
Just tell people.
Yeah.
It's that if you think Ohio State and Indiana are going to play for the Big Ten championship, if you think Fernando Mendoza is going to win the Heisman, you think Indiana is going to beat Ohio State. Because I'm telling you, if Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza, their teams play for the Big Ten championship, the loser of that game is not winning the Heisman.
And my shorthand was like the winner probably is.
Yeah. So it's just like, so Fernando Mendoza is kind of like everybody's Heisman pick right now. And I get, like, we can also argue, like, should he actually be the Heisman pick right now? But that's a no doubt about it. Like, I guess that's not what anybody is saying. But it is actually the conversation because my whole, I only ever say two things about the Heisman. One is, it helps tell the story of the season. It's not just statistical. It's not just like MVP, but like it matters to me. It's like when you think about a college and you look back on a college football season, I think the Heisman winner should help you tell the story of that season. And then everybody's like, "This is most outstanding." And then I say, go live in a hole. So I think that, and then the other one is that it's not a race. It's sort of like an invitational to like get to the card, like get to the boxing card at the end of the year, because whatever happens in the first 12 weeks can change in an instant on conference championship weekend. I always go back to like Tua Tagovailoa basically had the Heisman wrapped up, and then Kyler Murray went nuts in the Big 12 title game on a weekend when Tua did not play well in the SEC championship game, and Kyler stole it in a runaway. And so you can't win it before then, right? I like no matter, because like CJ Stroud had it won through 11 regular season weeks in 2021, and then Ohio State lost to Michigan, even though I had huge stats. But the bigger part of that is, yes, you lose to Michigan, but you also lose the opportunity to have the stage at your conference championship game to make a final closing argument. So it's a story of the season, and you've got to be on the stage at the end of the year. And if you're not, man, you better have a compelling case. So you're looking for guys who are going to be on the stage, and guess who we think is going to be on the stage at the end of the year? Julian Sayin, the Ohio State quarterback.
Yes, on the stage, and also I probably, I don't even probably is the right word, with a Michigan win or no, like because that Ohio State can lose to Michigan and still go to the Big Ten championship game. But like if you want to talk about season narrative too, like Ohio State ending its losing streak to Michigan with Julian Sayin at quarterback would like be a pretty compelling piece of data, I think, that would help Julian Sayin in the conversation.
I think that's a great point. And I also think I said it in the last 10 days. An Ohio State player is not going to win the Heisman if they lose to Michigan. But actually, if Ohio State would lose to Michigan but still make the Big Ten championship game, and then in the Big Ten championship game, that Heisman contender goes crazy, I actually maybe think they could win it. Because again,
they could, yeah.
It's been the punitive nature for Ohio State in this 4-game losing streak to Michigan is you've lost to Michigan. That's your rival. It's the season-defining thing. But it also knocked Ohio State out of the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah.
That don't get the shot at redemption, and that your closing, what I think is 100% true is your closing argument cannot be a loss to Michigan. That is true. If it turns out it's not your closing argument, then okay. But it doesn't matter if you threw for 396 yards and 4 touchdowns if you lost to Michigan and you didn't play another game before the Heisman votes were in.
I agree with that. And like I think I was thinking about Justin Fields a little bit in 2019 because he did beat Michigan and like had actually kind of like a cool moment in beating Michigan.
Yes.
And then Ohio State went on and won the Big Ten title, or not, the Big Ten championship that year. But that was the Joe Burrow year, so it's like he wasn't overcoming what Joe Burrow did. So like it's not a guarantee that checking those boxes for an Ohio State quarterback gets you there, but there's also like there's not a Joe Burrow out there this year to worry about. And I don't think Justin Fields also had votes taken away from him because his one teammate finished 4th and the other finished 6th, I think, that year, which I guess is possible with Julian Sayin. But I think the more important factor is that there's not some guy having a god year above him like Joe Burrow did in 2019.
No, I agree. I think, and I did this exercise a couple of years ago. I think it's a worthwhile exercise to do again. Like if you could, the playoff era is a very good place to draw a line. But if you could run through like the 20 best Heisman candidates of the playoff era or something like that. And for instance, like I think the year Caleb Williams won, I didn't think he was a very good Heisman candidate.
I agree.
Because he had the statistical profile, but his team lost the conference championship game. Like his closing argument was a loss in the conference championship game. And there was just nobody else to vote for. But actually, I think like 2019 Justin Fields has a better Heisman case than actual Heisman winner Caleb Williams in whatever year that was. It's just that Justin Fields was up against Joe Burrow. Right. So that, but he even finished 3rd that year, right? Because wasn't
Jalen Hurts was second.
Yeah. But I think like the top 3 that year are all better than Caleb Williams because they were quarterbacks of winning teams with great stats and everything. And Caleb Williams, like his team didn't get it done. So, all right, let's run through where things stand right now. FanDuel odds. Favorite, Ty Simpson, plus 320, the Alabama quarterback. Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana quarterback, is plus 340. Julian Sayin is the 3rd favorite at plus 400. So they are very tightly grouped. And then there's a drop to Marcel Reed, the Texas A&M quarterback, at plus 750. Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback, at plus 800. Gunnar Stockton, the Georgia quarterback, at plus 1100. Dante Moore, once upon a time, people were really on that, correctly so, I think, plus 1400, the Oregon quarterback. And then the first non-quarterback is Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame at 20-1. Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, the receiver, at 40-1. And I have had people ask, like, what about Carnell Tate? Like, we had a conversation on our Monday Around the Shoe show, Bill, about Carnell Tate. And I think like the first comment about that was like, what about Carnell Tate? That's a Heisman candidate. It's like, he doesn't even lead his team in receiving yards. So it's like, of all the great things that you can say about Carnell Tate, I mean, to have like could Carnell Tate actually win the Heisman discussion? I mean, I don't even want to say what it would require. I think everybody knows what it would require. It's the Devontae Smith kind of thing. Like, so like that, short of that, like it's not going to happen. And it's actually like what Carnell Tate is doing is probably ending Jeremiah Smith's Heisman candidacy.
I was just going to say
Jeremiah Smith had the preseason hype that elevated him, and then Carnell Tate is cutting into that, but not in a way that actually is going to make Carnell Tate get to New York.
No, I think my where I landed on that was they're both so good, Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, that they do sort of cancel each other out, but also at the same time boost Julian Sayin because it turns out that the Ohio State's passing offense is just like Jeremiah's down there somewhere, right? And actually it's just a very good passing offense that leads the country in passing success rate, led by an incredibly precise, accurate quarterback that I think is starting to captivate people with the way that he throws the ball. So it's like it actually all has sort of like come together in a way that I wasn't sure if Julian Sayin could propel past Jeremiah Smith, but I actually think he has because of Carnell Tate's rise, if that makes sense.
I think it does make sense because I think if you have like a great quarterback and a great receiver, it can be difficult to try to figure it out. If you have a great quarterback and two great receivers, the receivers cancel each other out and propel the quarterback, and it makes it clear. Like Ohio State's Heisman candidate is Julian Sayin.
Which I guess is not dissimilar from like the CJ Stroud conversation, right? Because he had excellent receivers. There was a time where I was like, I think I had talked myself into Garrett Wilson as Ohio State's Heisman Trophy candidate, but he didn't get there. CJ Stroud did because they also had Chris Olave.
So I guess the actual question is, are we sure it propels? Are we 100% sure it propels? Or can there be that quarterback's receivers are so good, any quarterback would be that good if he was throwing to Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate.
I don't think it propels you to a win, but I think it elevates him to, like, you're trying to figure out who's the Heisman candidate on this team, and that elevates the quarterback to that position.
So this is also like if it would come down, and this is strange, we'll get to the stats here in a second, but like if it would come down to a Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, Julian Sayin from Ohio State quarterback conversation beyond, I mean, the only thing that matters is you can't have two winners of that Big Ten championship game, and the winning quarterback is going to have the edge in the Heisman race.
Yeah.
The other thing is Indiana also has two excellent receivers.
Yep.
So like that argument, and that to me, I think is more about applying that argument to right now, where Fernando Mendoza and the straw polls that we'll get to in a second is just so far above Julian Sayin, and the stats are similar. And also I think to like be like, nope, it's got to be Fernando Mendoza, definitely ahead of Julian Sayin. Actually, I think shortchanges Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt at Indiana, who are Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate? Like, we understand that they aren't as good as them, but they're like next. They're probably the number 2 receiver combo in the country. And if you think they're only good because Fernando Mendoza is elevating them, that's wrong.
I think that's right. I'm trying to look up the other thing that you have to, I don't think you have to consider, but I guess I could see people considering with Mendoza is that Indiana has a really good rushing attack. Indiana is 13th in the country in rushing yards per game and like top 20 in yards per carry. And like in their game against Illinois, where they blew Illinois' doors off, they ran for like 330 yards, whatever it was. So like the passing offense, I think is what makes Indiana go, but there is balance there that Julian Sayin is not the beneficiary of at Ohio State.
Right. So let's do straw polls because this is a reflection. It's not necessarily all Heisman voters, but it's college football folks. On3 does one every week. Here's their Heisman poll. 1, Ty Simpson, quarterback Alabama. 2, Fernando Mendoza, quarterback Indiana. 3, Diego Pavia, quarterback Vanderbilt. 4, Marcel Reed, quarterback Texas A&M. 5, Julian Sayin, quarterback Ohio State. 6, Dante Moore, quarterback Oregon. 7, Haynes King, quarterback Georgia Tech. 8, Gunnar Stockton, quarterback Georgia. 9, Ruben Bain, defensive lineman Miami. And 10, Jeremiah Love, running back Notre Dame. So Julian Sayin is 5th. Fernando Mendoza is 2nd. And then if we go to The Athletic and their straw poll, Mendoza won, way number 1, far and away, with 14 of 22 first-place votes. Ty Simpson 2nd with 6 first-place votes. Diego Pavia 3rd with 3 first-place votes. Jeremiah Love 4th with 1 first-place vote. Am I looking at the most recent one? God, I am. Yeah. Julian Sayin 5th out of 22 votes. He got 1 second-place vote and 4 third-place votes. So Fernando Mendoza has 4 first-place votes, and everybody voted him at least in the top 3. Julian Sayin, 5 of 22 people voted him in the top 3.
There's an Ohio State ain't played nobody disease plaguing the Athletics national college football staff, and I know all of them.
Really?
Like I can
you get us on the show? Listen. We have to set people straight. And no offense, but nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. And that applies to every college football show that you watch and listen to that isn't us. Nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. And the idea, because like, what is the argument? Because let's go to the stats now. And again, it doesn't make me angry that Fernando Mendoza like is perceived as a better Heisman candidate than Julian Sayin. It makes me angry that Fernando Mendoza gets 14 first place votes and all 22 people vote for him, and Julian Sayin is on 5 of 22 ballots when actually it's a coin flip. Let's go to the PFF stats, just quarterback overall rating for the 68 power conference teams. Julian Sayin is first. Fernando Mendoza is 14th. And now these are just stats. Julian Sayin, 19 touchdowns, 3 picks. Fernando Mendoza, 21 touchdowns, 2 picks. Julian Sayin, 1,873 passing yards. Fernando Mendoza, 1,755. Julian Sayin, 80% completions. Fernando Mendoza, 72.7% completions. Yards per attempt, each are 9.6. A dot, which is how far you're throwing the ball down the field. Fernando Mendoza, 9.2 yards per throw. Julian Sayin, 8.4 yards per throw. Adjusted completion percentage, taking into account drops. Julian Sayin, 85.5. Fernando Mendoza, 79.5. Big time throws. Julian Sayin, 10. Fernando Mendoza, 7. Turnover worthy plays, 3 each. Landis, that is not a statistical comparison between one guy who's the heavy number one guy in the athletic straw poll and another guy who's getting practically no votes. And by the way, they are the 2 quarterbacks of the undefeated number 1 and number 2 teams in the country.
Yeah.
No offense. The people of the Athletic in this particular instance have no idea what they're doing.
Call
them all and play it.
I did work
Put it in a text message. You can put little sound clips in a text message now. I don't know who's voting in the thing. There are wonderful, spectacular human beings and college football writers over there. Ralph Russo and Bruce Feldman and Stuart Mandel and Chris Vanini and David Ubben and a million people that I am not naming right now. And I am just saying to all of those wonderful people, in this particular circumstance, you do not know what the hell you are talking about. And frankly, it's a little embarrassing. And if I had 7 minutes on a podcast with you, I would have you changing your ballot. I guarantee it, because the thing is, you're wrong. Like, it's not like, well, no, it's just wrong. Because again, it's like, well, but Indiana did this to Oregon and Ohio State did this to Texas, right? But the Texas defense was really good. That was Julian Sayin's first start. But also now we're underestimating everything else Ohio State's done against Minnesota and Washington and Illinois and acting like they haven't played anybody. And yes, I get it. Fernando Mendoza in Indiana had a great win on the road at Oregon. That's not an overwhelming number 1 to barely getting any votes distance. I'm not saying Fernando Mendoza shouldn't be 1. I'm just saying Julian Sayin should not be struggling to get on ballots.
No, I agree with that. And I think too, like, it wasn't Fernando Mendoza had I think he threw
for 215 yards against Oregon.
And he had, most of the game-winning touchdown drive was him throwing, including the game-winning touchdown. He threw a bad pick and he rebounded and he drove it on the field and won them the game. But it wasn't like he threw it all over Oregon. He didn't have 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm not trying to say he played poorly. He went on the road in a really tough place to win and won a game. That's great. And he should get credit for that. And frankly, because of that, and given his statistical profile, probably should be first right now. But I don't think he should be an overwhelming first, to your point. But that's like the thing. I wrote about Julian Sayin this week, and like that was the thing. I guess just the right way to say it is like the thing I came away like most concerned about, sort of on his behalf, as he tries to do this. Like, he's getting penalized because his team's too good. But he is not. They don't trail. They may not trail again the rest of the year, right? He's thrown 15 passes like losing, and it was 3-0 against Ohio and 3-0 against Washington.
Right. But isn't Indiana just as good?
Yes, but they were losing to Oregon.
So now we're in Bizarro universe, where it's like, well, the reason that Fernando Mendoza is perceived as a better Heisman candidate than Julian Sayin is that his team almost lost. It's like, okay, great. They also almost lost to Iowa. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's no, I've always said this. I mean, I've been talking about this kind of stuff for 20 years. I've always said there's no way to boost your Heisman case that's better than almost losing to Iowa. That's the magic pixie dust right there. Almost lose to Iowa, shoot to the top. And this comes across as like it is nothing against Fernando Mendoza. I have not filled out my ballot for our little thing that we're going to do. But I might have Fernando Mendoza first. Honestly, like right now,
Sure.
for the right now part of it, I might have Fernando Mendoza first. I just don't understand. And like the betting odds aren't reflecting this gap. The betting odds are like a three-way toss-up right now between Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza, and Julian Sayin, the quarterbacks of Alabama, Indiana, and Ohio State. I get that. I'm not disputing the betting odds. I have no idea why these straw polls are this way, other than those people have no freaking idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I think I just like generally we've had these conversations. Like the country's been a little slow to catch up to how good actually Ohio State is. It's taking like Miami losing for people to like actually pay attention to what's happening in Columbus, which I guess is fine. And Ohio State doesn't care because they're going to get to the playoff and that's all that matters to them. But I don't think anyone's really bothering to take a look at like what exactly Julian Sayin's done, or maybe like they're just starting to.
Right.
And they haven't played like they played the marquee game against Texas, and then Texas like didn't hold up its end of the bargain. The juice has been sucked out of the game coming up against Penn State in 2 weeks, right? Or whatever it is, week and a half. I don't think that's something that ultimately will hinder Julian Sayin from winning, but I do think it holds him back from being the guy leading the conversation at the moment.
Passing yards per game in FBS, Julian Sayin is 17th with 267.4 passing yards per game. Fernando Mendoza is 33rd with 250.7 passing yards per game. And the rating that CFB Stats uses, Fernando Mendoza is first, Julian Sayin is second. So Julian Sayin has a better completion percentage and more yards. He's thrown for, like, that's the other thing too. It's like sometimes you just have like people going nuts statistically. Julian Sayin's thrown for more yards.
Yeah. I think Mendoza has more touchdowns, right?
He has 2 more touchdowns.
2 more touchdowns and 1 fewer interception.
But like, so there's nobody like Sawyer Robertson for Baylor is leading the nation with 339 passing yards per game. Nobody's saying Sawyer Robertson should win the Heisman, right? Jaden Maeva from USC is at 311. This is not a Jaden Maeva case, right? Mm-hmm. Josh Hoover from TCU is at 303. That's 5th. Nobody's making that case. Joey Aguilar from Tennessee is 278. So like nobody's making a statistical case. And that's the thing that's like weird to me is sometimes it's like, well, someone's making this type of case and another person's making this type of case. And then you as a voter have to decide which type of case is more persuasive to you. And then when one's a running back, one's a receiver, one's a quarterback, one's a defensive player, it's all very different kind of things, right? As I always say, I voted Manti Te'o first on my Heisman ballot the Johnny Manziel year because I thought Manti Te'o was the quarterback of the defense for Notre Dame. Notre Dame was a defense first team, and they were playing for the national championship, and Texas A&M wasn't. So I thought of him as a quarterback, and I voted him first. He finished second. The Fernando Mendoza case and the Julian Sayin case are the exact same case. You're a high-level, skilled quarterback of an undefeated team. So then that it's this far of a gap is like, I have no idea what the gap is. And I do think it's an underdog trap that people cannot help themselves but to vote for Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt and Fernando Mendoza for Indiana because they're the story. And now I'm saying that as a guy who votes sometimes on the story. Like, man, and those are great underdog stories. Can you believe that the Indiana quarterback and the Vanderbilt quarterback are Heisman candidates? No, I can't. What an unbelievable story of the season. Let's go check into this stupid, boring story in Columbus. What's the story there? Well, they're undefeated, number one. They're the reigning national champs. They're trying to go back-to-back for the first time in Ohio State history, and the quarterback is a second-year guy. He was a 5-star recruit. He went to Alabama because of Nick Saban. Then Nick Saban retired and then transferred to Ohio State, and he showed up here, and he won the starting quarterback job, and he's doing this as a first-year starter, which neither Diego Pavia nor Fernando Mendoza are first-year starters. So I don't know. Is that interesting to anybody? Is that a story to be the first-year starting quarterback of the undefeated defending national champions? Or we're too in love with guys who transferred from Cal and New Mexico State. And like, we can't get away from that. So, I'm not saying I'm probably going to have Fernando Mendoza and Diego Pavia on my ballot. I'm just saying, like, okay. And if you're voting for Ty Simpson, what is your Ty Simpson case? Because Ty Simpson and Julian Sayin are exactly the same. They're first-year starting quarterbacks. Ty Simpson's 2 years older, but they're first-year starting quarterbacks at 2 blue bloods, except one of them lost to Florida State and one didn't. And by the way, Julian Sayin's statistical profile is better. So how is Ty Simpson How are you voting if that Ty Simpson is first in the on-3 straw poll and Julian Sayin is fifth? It's
Yeah, that's crazy.
inexplicable, other than On3's headquarters are in Nashville. And you got a bunch of SEC lunkheads voting for On3. And we know people working on 3. Tell them that too. I respect
think their
them
entire
as
national staff is Southern based. I think.
it's not personal. It's based on this vote that I think they're SEC lunkheads. That's all. I don't think they're bad people. I think in this particular instance, their SEC lunkheadedness is making them vote poorly.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I wanted to check myself too, because like I feel so like I said, I mentioned I wrote the story, so I just went to like look at the defenses all these guys have played against, and again, it's just me picking a analytics ranking and using that. You can use a bunch of different ones. I use SP Plus, which is whose proprietor works for ESPN. Of all those guys who are like the quarterbacks are the best odds, Sayin, Stockton, Simpson, Mendoza, Moore, Reed, Pavia. On average, the best defense any of those guys has faced is Sayin. Because he faced number 1 Texas, which is still the number 1 defense in the country by SP Plus. Minnesota actually has a top 20 defense by SP Plus, and Washington has a top 30 defense by SP Plus. And he's the only one of those guys who hasn't played a defense outside of the top 100 if you exclude FCS teams, because they've all played FCS teams or will play FCS teams.
And it's one of those, if there are voters who are holding like, well, Julian Sayin didn't have a huge game against Texas. They won a low-scoring defensive game 14-7, right? And then Texas turned out not to be what we thought. But as you said, not defensively. Like defensively, Texas is still good, right? Yeah. So Ty Simpson against Florida State was 23 of 43, so like barely 50% completions for 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. And they lost to Florida State. So it's like if you're dinging Julian Sayin for the Texas game, it's like, well, aren't you digging Ty Simpson for actually losing? But now we get back into, well, but Ohio State hasn't played anybody because nobody respects the middle of the Big Ten. And Alabama just went through Georgia and Missouri and Tennessee and all these teams that we're supposed to think are good, and Vanderbilt, right? Mm-hmm. And so like I'm supposed to be super impressed by Ty Simpson beating Vanderbilt, but like Julian Sayin beating Washington isn't supposed to matter, right? So that right. Goes back to the fight that we are just constantly having about the way the middle of the mid SEC is viewed compared to the middle of the Big Ten.
Yeah, but I think all this is true, and we're right to call it out. But I am not fearful of any of it holding him back in the end. I just think it's holding him back now.
So I think that's right. I think to get the Ohio State quarterback at plus 400 in the Heisman odds right now is pretty good. Like if you think Ohio State's going to stay good, this is a pretty good bet. Right. Mm-hmm. Because Ohio State to win the national championship is plus 260. Julian Sayin to win the Heisman is plus 400. So you cannot bet Fernando Mendoza to win the Heisman unless you think Indiana is going to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Otherwise, you're setting your money on fire.
Or and if you for some reason Ohio State's not going to get there, but I don't.
And then it's like if you think that, so conference winners. Ohio State's minus 155, Indiana's plus 190. It's like, so like, right? Like that's, Ohio State has much better odds to win the Big Ten, but Indiana's quarterback has better odds to win the Heisman. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No,
so,
I agree. Yeah.
We're just telling you, like, if you want to bet it, like you have to think about this, how to bet it. So if it comes down to Alabama runs the table, wins the SEC with Ty Simpson, and then it's the Indiana versus Ohio State quarterback, whoever wins that game, that's probably where your Heisman winner's coming from as it stands right now. Yeah. So just make sure you're thinking about it the right way, because do you believe that best quarterback of the best team is still the most obvious Heisman case?
Yes. Yeah.
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 So
do you think, sorry to cut you off. Do you think, I don't think this is going to happen, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility based off how things have gone so far, that Ohio State really is just not tested until it gets to the playoff. Like it just kind of controls every game and wins every game. And I'm not saying they blow everybody off the field, but like they're never like in the fourth quarter in a dogfight trying to win a game. But if that's the case, then you're talking about like team excellence combined with like record precision from Julian Sayin. Like I guess what I'm asking is like, do you think Sayin can still win it if he doesn't have a like quote unquote Heisman moment where like his team is down or his team needs him to really make a play and he goes out and makes it?
Yeah, I think if Ohio State's 13-0 and his completion percentage sets the record, which at the moment, right, it's Bo Nix at 77 point something from 2023. So if he's at 78% or above, and like that's the case is he's the most accurate quarterback in college football history for the undefeated number one defending national champs. I think that's enough.
Yeah, so do I.
So the history of like the quarterback on the best team, I tried to go through this really quick. The one seeds in the playoff, what was their quarterback in the Heisman race? So 2014, Bama was the one seed. Amari Cooper was their Heisman candidate that year because their quarterback was a linebacker. So Amari Cooper finished third in the Heisman. 2015, Clemson was the one seed. Deshaun Watson finished third in the Heisman and was the first quarterback in the Heisman rankings. Derrick Henry won that year as the Alabama running back. 2016, Bama was the one seed, but it was Jalen Hurts was a true freshman quarterback, and like his stats weren't that great, and he was a runner and a thrower, and like it just wasn't going to happen that way. 2017, Kelly Bryant was the Clemson quarterback when Clemson was the one seed, and like nobody was going to give the Heisman to Kelly Bryant. So like there's just some weird ones in here, but it's like, is Julian Sayin Kelly Bryant? Is Julian Sayin like freshman Jalen Hurts the same year that Lamar Jackson existed? Like, is that's what's happening? Why Julian Sayin is not the Heisman leader right now? No, he's not Kelly Bryant, and I don't see Lamar Jackson. The next year, Bama 2018, Tua was the number one seed in the playoff. Tua Tagovailoa was the Heisman leader going into conference championship weekend. It didn't play great, and Kyler Murray stole it from him. 2019, Joe Burrow. LSU's the one seed. Joe Burrow wins the Heisman, so that matches up. 2020, Mac Jones, the quarterback for number one seed Alabama, finishes third because his receiver won the Heisman, Devontae Smith, because they had two great receivers and one got hurt. And so then every throw went to one receiver, and then that's how the receiver wins. But it doesn't happen that way when you have two receivers. 2021, Alabama's the one seed. Bryce Young won the Heisman. 2022, Georgia's the one seed. Stetson Bennett finished, I think, fourth in the Heisman that year. And that's like Stetson Bennett, like, you know, probably should have finished higher. 2023, Michigan's the one seed. J.J. McCarthy finishes 10th because that's not a quarterback-led team, right? Blake Corum finished 9th that year as a running back. So, like, nobody's arguing that Julian Sayin to this Ohio State team is the same as J.J. McCarthy to that Michigan team, right? Nobody's making that argument, are they?
No.
And then 2024, last year, Oregon was the one seed, and Dylan Gabriel finished third and was the first quarterback behind Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. So, like, it's still the best case, and there are really no examples of our quarterback is actually really accomplished, and people know he's good. He's not some weird true freshman. He's not some sort of like stopgap Blake Sims, Kelly Bryant kind of guy. And we're the one seed, and he's not like first in the Heisman discussion among quarterbacks. Like, there's no scenario.
Clemson was never a one seed with Trevor Lawrence.
In 14, 15, 16, 17. I think they were the 2 seed that year.
Okay. That's probably the closest, though, of like your scenario, right?
But he didn't start the year as a starter. Like Trevor Lawrence as a true freshman didn't become the starter until like week 4. So, and then they won the national championship. But like at the time when the Heisman voting was happening, going into the playoff, like no matter how good he was, you're not going to win the Heisman if you're not the opening day starter.
And 19, they weren't. 19 was the Burrow year, and then
and he finished second.
COVID year
that was actually it. Yeah.
COVID year, you were like on the like Trevor Lawrence should be a Heisman finalist, like just because he's earned it for his career, kind of thing, right?
Yes.
In 2020,
yeah. So anyway, like nobody, and like he's a 5-star. He's the number one quarterback recruit in his class.
Yeah,
like
he was the perfect quarterback prospect before Quinn Ewers was.
And he's Arch Manning a year behind. And if Arch Manning was having Julian Sayin season and Texas was undefeated number 1, they would shut down. He would have every vote. That's a fact. If Arch Manning had Julian Sayin's exact statistics and Texas was undefeated number 1, there would not even be a conversation.
That's how you would get the Heisman to move the ceremony, because they would just move it to this week and give it to him now.
Yeah. We're giving Arch the Heisman during his bye week.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the thing. And it'd be like, but what about Fernando Mendoza? And what about Diego Pavia? And everybody would like, those are tremendous stories. It will be an honor for them to go to New York and watch Arch Manning become the first unanimous Heisman Trophy winner. Congratulations to Diego and Fernando on their second and third place finishes.
Yeah.
Fact.
Absolutely. Yes.
Get the athletic guys on here. Get them all on at once. Let's have a 22-person Zoom call so I can just berate everybody for their incompetent Heisman straw poll that I'm sure they spent 3 minutes on. But it's like their editor's like, hey, guys, you got to get straw poll ballot. And it's like, I don't know, Diego Pavia? He did a Heisman pose. Is it Diego Pavia? It's not a personal attack. I'm just telling you, you're terrible at this. This particular
Sayin's got a Heisman. He's got a Heisman pose on him. He could do it. I know he does.
You are his personality consultant.
Yeah.
Because like you can see it bubbling up, but a little more.
Yeah. I could tell the one deep ball that he threw to Jeremiah Smith against Wisconsin, he launched it and then like started like walking off the field. Like a putter, like a news, he just like sunk it, like and just like just starts walking toward the hole. And then Jeremiah, like it was like he actually pulled the string a little bit, and Jeremiah didn't catch it. But it was like that was the moment where we might have gotten a little something if that pass was completed.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Okay, all right. So it's in there somewhere. Apparently, the people who vote for the Heisman midseason need some of that somehow.
Yes.
So it's like you're playing a game tomorrow. Do you want Diego Pavia or do you want Julian Sayin? I'm just asking.
It depends? Well, you might not be able to. Is it a 22 and under league? Because then you can't use Pavia.
Is it a rec league? Is it a 30+ rec league at the local Y? Then you can use Diego Pavia because he is the best 30-year-old quarterback in America. Okay. I don't think this is unreasoned anger. It's not anger because it doesn't matter. Yeah. But it's frustration about perception, which is kind of my brand.
Yeah, no, I think we need to fight the good fight against perception. And Julian Sayin is not being discussed properly.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. That's good. We appreciate you guys being here. Yeah. All right. We have a bunch of stuff coming this week. Make sure you stay tuned to this YouTube channel. Make sure you stay tuned to our podcast feeds. And if you want to go check out our Substack, BillAndDougOSU.substack.com, we'll share our current Heisman ballots and what we would project for the end of the year and let you know how we're thinking. And there's like a 25% chance that my Heisman ballot will be Fernando Mendoza, Diego Pavia, Ty Simpson, because that's just kind of how I roll sometimes. And then just feel like yell at myself. I probably won't do that. But I'm going to sit down and do it right now. God, I hope I don't come to that conclusion because I've got to be true to myself. And I'm like, man, you know what? I'll tell you what, this Ty Simpson case, I can't get away from it. But I don't think I will do that because I did see an NFL person that I respect talking about Ty Simpson as possible QB1 in this draft right now. And I'm just so tired of having mid SEC quarterbacks jammed down my throat. And Carson Beck last year.
I don't think
Carson Beck last year and Garrett Nussmeier this year. Does anyone talk about Garrett Nussmeier as the number one pick right now? Where's the Nussmeier Heisman hype right now? Oh, it completely vanished. Oh, gee. I wonder. I guess. Oh, the Arch Manning Heisman hype completely vanished. I guess we better go search for another SEC quarterback because God forbid we look. Put your eyes to the south for the Heisman candidacy of fill in the blank. God forbid that it's not an SEC quarterback. Well, Arch and Nussmeier really crap the bed, so I guess we're stuck with Pavia and Simpson. Everybody good? All right. We ended the conference call. You can put Simpson or Pavia first. Just make sure you don't go too far with the undefeated number one defending national champs. Like, come on, for real? He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug LeMaurice. And that was the Bill and Doug Show.